You will have failures in life, people will hurt you, but that's just how life is. Resisting it and feeling angry about it means not loving your own life. To me, Robert Greene is one of the greatest living philosophers of our time. His books have sold millions and millions of copies all over the world, and his works have directly changed the lives of athletes, musicians, world leaders, and my own life as well. In today's video, we will talk about historical lessons that Robert applied in his life, and that you can apply too. Welcome to Atomic Power, a channel of historical philosophy and personal development. Amor fati, love of fate, loving only what happens and what is destined. There is no greater harmony, said Marcus Aurelius. The idea of loving everything that happens to you, without resentment, is a burden, but it is also a way of embracing and finding the good in all things that happen. We start from a position of feeling sorry for ourselves, thinking that we deserve more than what we are getting. We should overcome some of these natural elements of human nature, transform them, and use them for another purpose, another path. Amor fati is very powerful because it trains you to accept everything that happens. It is a kind of banality to say that things happen for a reason, but there is some truth in it. Life involves pain, diversity, and you will die one day, and it won't be pleasant. Your friends and family will die one day, and it won't be pleasant either. You will have failures in life, people will hurt you, but that's just how life is. We suffer more in our imagination than in reality. I think what this is saying is that people fear so much what could happen, they are very concerned about negative news that might come out. In fact, some of these things will happen, and they will be very negative, or maybe not so much, but you are borrowing suffering beforehand. You are torturing yourself and feeling terrible about it even before it happens. Robert Greene said that whenever he is meditating, he thinks that there is a world out there that has absolutely nothing to do with him, that is completely different from him. The birds don't care about his faith, the trees don't know anything about his existence, the sky and nature don't care about him. That is reality, that is the world. But our thoughts often create this idea that we are the most important thing in the universe, that everything that happens will happen to us and it will be bad, etc. So you need to be able to see the thoughts that hold you back so often through anxiety, thoughts that arise and say, I need to make this phone call, I forgot to send that email, or damn, this interview is coming up, but I don't want to do it. Many of these thoughts are actually anxieties that you are anticipating, what you think might happen. If you can control that, if you can just see that this is the source of your problem, and that the world is indifferent to you and the circumstances are totally neutral, that the newspaper with that bad news that will come out, you cannot control it. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Memento mori, let's prepare our minds as if we have reached the end of life. Let's not postpone anything. Let's balance the books of life every day. Whoever puts the finishing touches on their life every day never runs out of time. We humans are so confused and messed up in so many ways because of our consciousness and fear of death. It's because of this fear that we create all kinds of superstitions and the idea of an afterlife. You are enslaved by this fear and not aware of it. It's controlling you. Most people will say, oh, but that's not me, as they always do. After all, only other people are irrational. I'm not. Oh, I'm not afraid of death. I'm always playing video games, killing everyone there. I watch lots of movies full of death and violence. I'm not afraid of death. Our culture has been permeated with cartoon versions of death. Your death is something physical and will happen to you. It's a very visceral thing. You are afraid of death, and this fear creates what I call latent anxiety. This causes you to be afraid of many things in life, and you end up not being aware of it and being cautious about failure. This makes you cautious about taking risks. So what I'm trying to show you is that your fear of death has infected you at many levels. Death is like a vast ocean, and we are on the beach looking at it. Most animals are not aware of their mortality. We are the only species, as far as we know, that is aware of its own mortality, and here you are, this vast ocean in which you do not know how death is or how it will be, and you are afraid of it. You turn your back on it. We humans have the ability to explore things and overcome our fear. So instead of turning your back, enter this vast ocean and explore. There are ways to explore your own thoughts about mortality, and this can free you and inspire you in various ways. Anticipate everything that is completely unexpected. It's more overwhelming in its effects, and the unexpected increases the weight of a disaster. This is a reason to ensure that nothing catches us by surprise. We should project our thoughts ahead at all times and keep in mind all possible eventualities, rather than just the casual events. Imprisonment, torture, war, shipwreck, all the terms of our human fate should be before our eyes. Alfred Hitchcock was one of the greatest historical figures of the 20th century. Directing a film is an extremely stressful job. Problems arise that you cannot predict. All that pressure, all that money, huge egos, and various actors, producers, etc. It's a constant adrenaline rush, and you end up not being able to control your emotions. The main task of life is simply to identify and separate the subjects so that I can clearly tell myself what are the external aspects that are not under my control and that have to do with the choices I make. Then I look for the good and the bad, not for uncontrollable external factors, but within myself, for the choices that are mine. So people looked at Hitchcock on the set and he was sleeping in the director's chair. He looked like Buddha, his eyes were closed. Why? Because he was preparing for everything, anticipating everything that was going to happen. So when the film arrived, he was completely unconcerned because he knew he could control every aspect of the production. Actions speak louder than words. Never look at people for what they say or for their appearances. Look at their actions and patterns of behavior. For example, Harry was someone who had a very weak character, he was a horrible businessman, and people were attracted to the image of an independent aviator, a Hollywood celebrity, etc. But if you looked at his patterns of behavior, you would see that he was actually very toxic. So stop looking at what people say about themselves and look at their actions. And don't forget to get your weekly dose of historical wisdom by joining our club.